In this video, I'm going to give you 5 things that you need to do with your Quest 2. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you some tips of things that you should avoid. Now, when you first put on a VR headset, it blows your mind. That feeling of being transported into a completely different world, it's bizarre and incredible. And there are thousands of possibilities and things that you can do to make sure you're experiencing VR to its fullest. But it is a bit overwhelming, and when you first jump into this world, you might think, what now? So having this Quest 2 for a little while, and probably spending more time in it than I should have, these are the things that I recommend you check out first. First of all, when you first start with the Quest 2, you're sort of just thrown into this meta world, and you're not really given that much direction. So the first thing I recommend you do is jump on an app that's already pre-installed on the Quest 2 called First Steps. Now, it isn't the best game in the world, but it will give you a really good feel of all of the capabilities of VR and sort of how to get a hang of the controllers and some of the different things that are common in a lot of different apps on the platform. There are simple games where you can pick up and stack blocks and play with a remote control blimp. You can even dance with a robot and pick up multiple different types of guns and see what the shooting games are going to be like. So secondly, once you're acquainted with the system and you've got the grip of it, then it's time to get your game on. Now, there are a ton of games that you need to pay for and some that are free to experience. A couple of the ones that I would recommend buying are things like Beat Saber or Super Hot VR. Now, as much as these are paid for games, they're really, really good, and also they're quite easy to get the grip of, so it helps you sort of get acquainted to gaming in VR. Beat Saber is basically a cross between Guitar Hero and Star Wars. You basically have lightsabers that you're using to slice blocks in time to music. And Super Hot is this almost like FPS shooter puzzle game where you have to dodge bullets like in the Matrix and shoot guns, and you get to punch people up. It's really, really cool and worth experiencing. And basically, despite looking like an idiot whilst playing it, you will feel like a badass. Now, some free games that are pretty cool are things like Echo VR, which is essentially a cross between football and ultimate frisbee. You're playing in a team of people and you've got to get a frisbee through a goal at the end, and you're flying around in zero gravity. Now, the concept is pretty cool. I did notice that the majority of people that I played with were like 12 years old, and they're sort of squeaking around.
It's the room. It's the room I'm in. I crouched. Sorry, you have to try a little bit harder. Just a little bit harder.
If you do want to get some good multiplayer gaming, you might find that you're going to be playing with some younger people. If you are a younger person, that might not be an issue to you, but I get that some people my age, it can get quite annoying having people yammering on in your ear and you just want to get on with the game. And I think that game is a really good idea of the capabilities of VR, and although some of the people can be quite annoying, it's a really, really good experience. Now, the third thing you can do, a sort of tangent off of the last point, is social apps. Now, the social apps on the Quest 2 are a massive positive and ultimately a huge part of what makes this so good. Now, it may take a while to find a crowd you like. There are a few apps to choose from, things like VR Chat, Horizon Worlds, Rec Room. And the second point, games like Rec Room and Horizon Worlds have a ton of games pre-installed on them, so you can play with your friends and with strangers around the world on the thing. Now, I did find when I had a go at Rec Room, again, I was having that same issue with squeaky kids, which is a little bit annoying. But for example, I headed over to a comedy club in Horizon Worlds and got to hang out with some people that were a bit closer to me in my age, and it was a good laugh. I had a good chat with a bunch of different people that I would have never met in my life, and it was just a bit bizarre and really cool.
I give you.
And you could just sort of chat to people, and some people got up on stage and sort of told a few jokes that were pretty much terrible, but it was good to have a laugh at that person's expense with everyone else in the room. And it is interesting to think that maybe if you were getting into comedy and you wanted to do a stand-up routine, you could go and do a stand-up routine to strangers and actually see whether these jokes actually stick. Really weird to think that this world is there at the palm of your hand, or at the glass over your face. Now, I can imagine if you have friends that have a Quest 2 and you want to hang out with them, but you can't necessarily go out the house, or it's just easier to pick up one of these. It'll be really cool to do that because you can play a ton of different games with them that you might not be able to in real life, and then you can also just hang out and meet other people in your groups of friends. It's a really cool idea and a really good concept if you have a few people that you know with one of these headsets. Now, obviously, not everyone in every area is going to be the type of person you want to hang out with, so I do recommend having a look at all of the different social apps and sort of spending a bit of time trying to bump into people that might be different from you, but sort of are fun to talk to and engage with. Now, something I would recommend you doing is experiencing some of the really cool VR experiences that are on offer for free on this headset. Now, you can see these in a ton of different apps and places. There is YouTube VR, an app where you can watch normal YouTube videos, but there are also tons of like 360 videos from National Geographic and stuff like that, and you can like travel to the center of the world in 3D, and it's really, really cool. There are some standalone apps like the Jurassic World app that is free, and you can experience dinosaurs up close and personal. Really, really cool. I actually put the headset on my 2-year-old boy, and he was looking at this Apatosaurus, big long-necked dinosaur. It was sleeping, and it came over and looked him in the eye, and he absolutely freaked out. He's obsessed with dinosaurs, but I think I might have turned him off of it because he thought he was being attacked by a dinosaur. It was hilarious. Don't report me. And then going back to some of the other apps I spoke about already, like Horizon Worlds, you can go to different venues where they're showing 3D videos, and you can go there with other people, strangers, your friends, and you can watch 3D documentaries by people like David Attenborough. You go to concerts and stuff like that in 3D. It's super cool. And lastly, you can just take straight to the wild web. You can go on the browser app and just access the internet, and anyone who's uploading VR experiences online, you can just go straight to them from your thing. They don't have to be specifically on the Oculus or Meta store. You can just go straight online and you can experience VR from anywhere on the web. And the fifth thing I recommend you have a go at is exploring the world. Now, there are a ton of ways you can do this. You can go straight to videos of different places on YouTube and you can see the Eiffel Tower and the Empire State Building and all that stuff. Or you can use an app called Wonder. Now, Wonder basically plugs into the Google Maps API, so you can go around essentially Street View and you can travel around the world and you can see everywhere in real-time 360. So you can essentially travel to any street in the world that the Google cart has been and you can see that place. And you can go back in time for any previous times as well, back all the way to like 2008, and see what it was like when Google first went around there and how it's changed over time. You can go to the far edge of the world, or you can just go to the street where you grew up and see what it looks like now and a few years ago. And let's be honest, the main reason why anyone would actually go on that app is just to go and look at their own house. They could go walk outside and they could stare at their house, but doing it in VR, again, it's just a bit weird, but that's what you're going to do, and I know you're going to do it if you get that app. Everyone's going to go look at their own house, because why wouldn't you? Now, those are 5 things I think you definitely should do with VR, and there are a ton of other things that you can do, but there are things that you should avoid. Now, ultimately, I don't think there's a lot that you should avoid, obviously, other than the essential being nasty to people and crime and stuff like that. There's many things for yourself. First of all, you need to make sure you're playing this thing in a decent amount of space. What essentially you do is you create a boundary around yourself when you're playing, so you've got a bit of room to go around. I recommend making your boundary smaller than the actual space you're in for a good reason. If you put it right to the edges of the walls and stuff like that, as much as you're giving yourself as much space as possible, and it feels nice inside whatever app you're playing. If you make your boundary all the way to the edges and you accidentally reach the edge of the boundary quickly, like you're punching someone in an app, you're not going to see the boundary appear in the app until it's too late, and you're going to punch through it and punch a wall. So you're going to punch a kid in the face. It's just going to be an absolute nightmare. So I would 100% recommend just making sure that you make that boundary smaller. The second tip, you need to avoid this being out in sunlight. Now, it does say that on the lenses before you take the protective film off, and it is massively important. The reason is that the lenses on this headset, they're basically essentially magnifying glasses. And what is going to happen is that if the sun is shining on them, it is going to do to the screen in this what a magnifying glass would do to paper or an ant or something like that. And it's not going to last, it's going to do some serious damage. So I'd recommend putting something over it. And I do think Meta or Oculus should have done something to sort of give you an option to cover it. I don't know whether like a flap or some sort of bag or something like that. I know you can get cases and stuff like that. Just be careful that wherever you put this in your room, if you're putting it on charge or something like that, that it's not directly facing a window where the sunlight's going to come in, because you're going to ruin it and it's going to be your fault. And the last thing you need to avoid doing with this, technically I think it's something you should do with it, but you need to make sure you don't not put the straps on. You need to put these straps on, because there are games where you're picking things up and then you're letting go of them, or you're trying to throw objects. And if you don't have the strap on and you're trying to throw things quite far, there's a good chance it's going to slip out your hand. And if it slips out your hand and smashes into a TV, well, again, that is your fault. It comes with straps. Put them on. So guys, I hope that was helpful for you. The world is your oyster with VR. There are thousands of things you can do, and I've barely touched the surface in this video. But I hope this video has given you a head start into how you're going to approach this. Maybe you've got a Quest and you just run out of ideas, or maybe you're getting one and you just want to know what I should do first. I'll see you in the next one. Whoop!